Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Yellow Alert, where we take a look at the dev posts over the last week, so you don't have to. Okay, so first up we had a post from Weaponized Humour, and it says, "What do crash dumps supply? What do they need?" And he says, "I ran into a large number of reproducible crashes to desktop and submitted a number of crash dumps, but this is apparently insufficient for solving it. Do crash dumps include stack frames? Is there something else in addition to this and the DX diag which would help when creating bug reports? What do devs need to debug repeatable crashes aside from the DX diag and the dumps?" So we had a response from Bearded at CIG, and he says, "Hello." I'm sure he said it like that. "Crash dumps provide information on what a program was doing. Debugging needs will vary depending on the kind of issue that is being caused, so in many situations this might be all that's needed for the issue to be investigated and fixed. In addition to the dump file, the crash handler also sends us additional information that the dump file doesn't contain, such as the game client log file, just in case that has information that makes it easier to investigate and fix the issue. In some cases, developers don't get the information they need to be able to fix something from a crash submission and need specific steps in order to be able to fix the issue. In looking at your crash submission history, a lot of the submissions are graphics card crashes. One thing that you can do to help the game client send information that helps fix these is to add r/enable_full_GPU_sync=2 to your user config file and then reproduce the crash. This makes the game client performance pretty bad, so once you submit the crash you want to remove it. After that, poke someone to let them know that the info was sent and that it can be looked into." So that's pretty good. Bearded's come back and given a suggestion as to how to help to kind of improve the dump that Weaponized Humour's taken. So it's important, to get a good quality dump. So next up we had a post from Ryston, and it says, "The tyranny of looking for questions." Smiley face. "Just take a moment and celebrate with me how strong my clickbait game is here. I'm not normally this good at anything. Anyways, I was just going to say you could almost pick the questions based on timestamp instead of upvotes, given how good at reading past the first dozen replies this community often is. Come on people, go find a comment made after the first half an hour of this week's pinned post you agree with and give it an updoot. Except mine. Mine are forfeit for having made this post." So we had a comment back from Xylo at CIG, and he says, "While popularity of a question does weigh in, that doesn't mean we don't look through the whole thread. Sometimes there's some gems below, and sometimes we even inject our own questions so that we can cover a topic we think the community will want to know. Regardless, thanks for the feedback. Happy to relay to the team at Madrona." So LF Stern came back and said, "You understand that by injecting your questions you are manipulating the player base. It's called gaslighting. Proud of that, are you?" And Xylo came back and said, "I see it differently than you. To me, we strive to ask the most popular questions, which we do every week, pull some of the less popular ones that we feel we have meaningful answers for, and inject some of our own to cover areas the community may not have thought of, or things we know we have good info to share. From my perspective, this is a multifaceted approach that grants a diverse selection of questions. Now, there is a reoccurring issue where some of the popular questions are repeated across multiple shows. That's a tough one to solve, but we're brainstorming how we can approach. On one hand, we want to answer what a majority are voting on, but on the other, we don't want to take up time with repeating ourselves. There's a lot of variables in there to consider. Are the votes coming from new players who haven't seen the answers before? Is the problem with discoverability with previously released answers? If so, how do you manage thousands of answers over the years? Does the early bird get the upvote? These are all the types of questions we're asking ourselves as we work out improvements. Overall, our goal is to make Q&As as productive and entertaining as possible, and we appreciate all the feedback shared." So this continues, this does go on a bit, but I think that kind of answers the question, and I think that kind of puts LF Stern in his place. And I'd just like to add there that fair enough, sometimes manipulating the narrative of what you want people to talk about. It can be dodgy, but let's face it, we're screaming out to CIG to tell us stuff, and then when they tell us additional stuff, we're going to tell them that they're gaslighting? Come on, man, you know, grow up. So next up we had a post from Driftwood Badger, and it says, Star Citizen Live, car buyers don't care about specific numbers. So there's a quote here, nobody cares about exactly how fast a car can go when they go car shopping. Sounds like something people who don't care about cars at all would say. Have you ever met a car enthusiast? Numbers are everything. Car nerds love numbers. Guess what? Ship nerds do too. We're ship nerds. Give us the damned numbers. So first of all, you don't need to put it like that, but there you go. So Yogi Clat has come back and he says, okay, I see how my statement might have upset a few peeps, so let me try to correct this a bit and make the context clear. My whole point was that looking at pure numbers does not really tell you the whole story about the combat performance of a ship. To stay for a second with the car analogy, let's assume you have two cars. One hits 100 miles per hour in 5 seconds, the other one in 4.8. You could easily say that car 2 is the better choice, but in reality, the little difference on that stat can easily be offset by factors that may not be visible in typical sales numbers, e.g. how much vibration do you feel during driving and how it handles in tight curves. There is a related story in the old Falcon 4 manual for the F-16 pilot Pete Banani. I hope I said that right. Good old Pete Banana, where he describes how World War II ace Adolf Galland was interviewed about the difference between the FW-190 and the Bf-109, the two main fighters in the German Luftwaffe back then. The interviewer told him that he considered the FW-190 as the better fighter. Galland responded saying that judging it purely by the numbers, that might be right, but for him the Bf-109 was far superior. That was because the FW-190 showed a certain unpleasant handling character in some flight envelopes, whereas the Bf-109 fit like a glove and allowed its pilots to bring it to peak performance much easier. It was just easier to fly, so the pilots could focus more on their actual tasks and less on handling the plane correctly. That is pretty much the point I was going for, but which I frankly did not explain well. Star Citizen is a very physical driven game, so numbers from the game data do not tell the complete story about how these ships perform. Think about things like the pure size, visible aspect sizes, handling differences due to thruster layouts, item placements, ship parts structures, cockpit visibility, etc. All these factors have an impact on your combat performance, but are not easily converted into actual usable ship data numbers. This does not mean that we purposefully are going to hide general performance information on ships on items. We did not say that, and that was never the plan. Of course we will show that stuff. Like any car vendor who will put out stats, you have places to buy ships in the verse and they show you the necessary data to help you with your purchase. I hope that clears up what I mentioned in the Star Citizen Live. P.S. I am indeed no car lover, but I do love spaceships and planes very much. So I think that is a very, very good kind of breakdown and to help people understand what Yogi Clap was talking about. You know, there is a similar instance of this in motorbikes. You know, for example, my motorbike is technically not the fastest of its kind, but the way that the engine is structured, the way that the entire bike is laid out, you wouldn't see it in the numbers. You would go, right, that Yamaha is faster than my Honda. But if I was to take that Honda up against that Yamaha on a straight open road, I would destroy it. And then if we went into the corners, I would take it down quite easily. So you can't always judge a book just solely on the contents of the numbers. You know, you have to read between the lines. Okay, so next up we had a post from Renegade CEO, and it says, Ballistic Ammunition Quantities question. With the new changes in 3.14, will the amount of ammunition available to a ballistic weapon be based off the mount, point, /ship or the weapon itself? If it's based off the weapon and not the mount /ship, then I am sad. I like the idea of ballistic weapons having limited ammo space. but it doesn't make sense for it to not be tied to the magazine space on the vessel mounting point that it is attached to. Example, on the Hurricane, say I install deadbolt 4s on the nose hardpoints. Now let's say it has 25 rounds per gun due to the magazine sizes. If these are swapped to deadbolt 2s, due to a reduction in the size of the ammo, I would expect to see sizable increase in the ammo I could carry. Look at the old Spitfires from early World War II that ran 7.62 machine guns to begin with. They had huge belts of ammo, but when they swapped to the Hispano 20mm, due to the size and weight of the 20mm shell versus the 7.62, they were only able to place some 60 to 120 rounds per gun versus the 400 to 600 of the 7.62. So Yogi Clat has come back and said in 3.14 the ammo limits will have to stay being based on the weapon itself, as we're lacking the tech yet to handle that in a different way. We'll discuss after the 3.14 release what to do about it. So I think that's fair. I mean, you know, it's in the cards. It's just not in the hand we've got just yet, basically. So next up, we've got a post from Razdaline. And it says, and this is a long one, Emergent play or rail play. What brought me to Star Citizen was the chance that we'd see some emergent gameplay. Players taking bounties on each other, persistent bases, player convoy operations, etc. There has been work in the development of events and other, in my opinion, non-immersive repeatable gameplay on rails. Are these things going to be the primary gameplay loops, or can I expect to see players running their own events as a more primary or core gameplay tenet that Star Citizen offers? I think some events are cool, but they are repeatable and on rails. They will get old fast, and historically this type of feature creep is extremely time consuming and takes away from development that could be used to further enhance sandbox gameplay for real humans that can then go ahead and dictate what's a valuable use of their time. Running an event X amount of times lowers the value of doing that thing because there eventually is no perceived risk since the event is automated and predictable. Player versus player gameplay never loses its gameplay value since the experience is almost always unique. Having an infrastructure that supports emergent gameplay versus player and player plus player gameplay will make this game extremely valuable from the perception of someone who is completely burnt from the on-rails, cookie-cutter, Care Bear experience that has played game development or has completely destroyed valuable, well-designed gameplay worlds. For example, I'd rather raid an org's base, battle actual people and steal their cargo stash. This sort of thing will never get old and will always be a different experience. There is a real risk and real reward. Well, real enough. So then there is basically kind of a history of games that Razdaline has played, etc, etc. And then at the bottom we basically get, if you want a good gauge on what people loved about the above games, just look online for their emulated servers. People have even chosen and recreated servers from the time periods that these games were at their peak. A few things all the emulated servers have in common is that the time periods being emulated are at points where the game were more challenging, had a high risk versus reward, and at points where emergence wasn't hard to find. So will Star Citizen's gameplay structure be geared towards enhancing the emergent experience, or will the structure be geared towards enhancing a packaged on-rails experience, or both? Thanks. So I recommend you read the little part about the games. It's just very long. So Jake Acapella come back from CIG and said, "Hey, raised a line. The intent for dynamic events is eventually to have a library of these that we can trigger anywhere, anytime. Additionally, the eventual goal is to have the economic simulation, Quantum, be able to trigger these based on the socio-economic conditions of the verse. Dynamic events will also come in multiple flavours, such as mainly PvE, Xenothreat, or PvP, Ninetales focused. This, in addition to player-driven missions and events like how you're describing, are to fill the verse with life and things to do and see. Here's a timestamp video where we last mentioned the intent on these events, and you can find a YouTube video there, and a deeper dive on how dynamic events work now as well as plans for the future. And there's another link to a YouTube video. He hopes this helps." So that's pretty good. I think that it's always been the plan that, they want a lot of the content to come from us. But I suppose when you're trying to build a game, you can't rely on that. You have to build the on-rails experience first, because that is the part that they can control. and then when this game releases, a lot of that emergent gameplay will be left to us to deal with. There is another question a little bit further down that says, if you say PvE Xenothreat or PvP Ninetales, does this mean that PvP is not wanted nor not allowed as Xenothreat, or does it mean that PvP is not the focus of this event? And Jake Acapella basically come back and said definitely the latter, though I'd advise caution going up against the Warhammer. So basically, yeah, the idea is that there's going to be specific gameplay types for different people, PvE or PvP, plus there's going to be gameplay which we can all create ourselves once this game is fully fleshed out. That's the hope anyway. I mean, we'll see what happens. It might be that we end up with essentially, an on-rails game with a huge environment and not much to do. Who's to say? But, let's all be positive, shall we? Okay, so a couple more. We had Ulf at CIG, and he's got a post here, Constellation Phoenix Emerald update. So for Alpha 3.14, we brought the constellations in line with each other. With this change, we can optimize aspects once, and then all versions benefit from the change. Plus, we have also made sure that they are now all working with the new tint system. We also have updated the Constellation Phoenix Emerald paint with this transition, as the former version was less emerald than the Stellar Fortuna St. Patrick's Day editions of the Ursa rover and the Archimedes, which are both predominantly emerald with small accents. The new version matches better to the other Stellar Fortuna vehicles, with green being its primary colour. Below you will find an image of the updated Constellation Phoenix Emerald, as can be seen in Alpha 3.14. And let me tell you people, if you're not looking at this picture, it's very green. And last up, we've got a post here from Wayne at CIG. So as you know, CitizenCon 2951 is going to be digital, October 9th, 2021, but they're still giving us a chance to be a part of it. So they have a video contest. So basically, what's it all about? So they're asking for people to produce basically entertaining in-fiction videos to play between the dev panels at the CitizenCon. So they're asking to basically send your creations for the opportunity to reach and entertain the entire Star Citizen community in one fell swoop. Your in-fiction video may promote your player organization, an NPC group, an in-game product, your community-driven event, or whatever else you can think of that would be fun in-fiction addition to the show. The commercials can be serious or funny. You can even send in comedy skits or short machinimas. I'm so old, I don't even know what that is. Whatever you like, as long as you're bringing the community booth spirit to CitizenCon 2951. So there's basically a please keep in mind and all that kind of stuff. So read all the contest rules. Don't just sort of make some random Star Citizen porn video and send it in, because I'm sure it won't get shown. And they've got prepared technical specs for the video and all that kind of stuff. So the rewards. So basically, fame and glory. Plus you might receive a tank with LTI and stuff like that. It's not, the most incredible giveaway they've ever done, but it's cool. And it will definitely be interesting to see people's videos up at CitizenCon. So yeah, if you want to be involved in that, get that done now. Submissions end September 19th, 2021. So, make sure if you're going to do it, you've basically got a little less than a month. Okay. And that is it. So yeah, I hope these have been useful and informative for you. And obviously, if there's any comments or anything that you can think of that you want to add, then get into that comment section and let us know. But yes, I hope this is helpful for you. And I think that is pretty much it. It's quite a long one. So yeah, thanks everyone very, very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.